Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dave Sands. Welcome to the Food Origins podcast. I'll be talking to people about their unique stories with food. And as a quick reminder, the restaurants and gear talked about on each episode can be found on my website, foodoriginspodcast.com. I appreciate your support, and thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Food Origins podcast. Today, my guest is Andy Moeckel, otherwise known as the Flip-Flop Guy. In this episode, Andy shares his life adventures, growing up hunting and fishing, and exposure to wild game and developing a passion for cooking. Andy's been, we go into detail about Andy's cooking, the flip-flop style. He's been doing it all over the country, and his family recipe has turned into a business. Appreciate Andy for coming on and sharing his story. And I was fortunate enough to try some of his cooking right before this podcast, so you hear about that in great detail. And before this podcast comes out, Andy will have released some new sauces and hot sauces. And make sure you listen to the end of the episode. He gives some heartfelt advice for all of you. And appreciate everyone for listening. Enjoy this one. Take care. Boom. We're live. We're rolling.
We're getting it going.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy, for doing this.
Thanks for the drink.
Yeah, of course. Non-alcoholic. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We're out here on location in Sonoma at the West Coast Last
Chance Broadhead
Shoot. And I'm here with Andy Moeckel, a.k.a. the Flip-Flop Guy. I'll do a full intro before this podcast, but why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
My name is Andy Moeckel. I'm originally from Marin County, California, fifth generation Marin County, and grew up in the Bay Area, being a wild-ass Bay Area kid, into a pretty phenomenal family. Had a great time growing up. I went off the deep end doing silly things.
Okay.
But, now I live in Bozeman, Montana, and everyone calls me the Flip-Flop Guy. Obviously, I pretty much fly all over the nation and cook deer legs for different private corporate events and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about childhood, what that was like in Marin, and, obviously this podcast is about food, and get into a little bit about life in Marin and tell us what you ate as a kid.
So growing up in Marin County, I grew up kind of in a different era of Marin than where it is at now. There was still diversity in the community as far as like diversity of opinion. People could come from different backgrounds and different ways of life, and it was okay. I definitely grew up in a very strong hunting family. My grandfather, who we'll get into it probably at some point in this.
For sure.
My grandfather was California Fishing Game Warden. My dad was a contractor. My mom worked at Safeway. So it was just like a very normal, whatever, someone would call a normal life. My dad worked till 5 or 6 p.m. every night. Mm-hmm. My mom worked, I think, till 2:30 to make sure that she was home when the kids came home from school. And, yeah. But, you want to get into the wild stuff? Is that what you're kind of going for?
No, it's up to you. We'll leave it up to you. You have the floor. So,
I dove into, drinking, smoking cigarettes, smoking pot when I was very young, probably right around 10 years old.
Okay.
And pursued that for a solid 5 years.
Okay.
Which meant, and inevitably it ended in me becoming a ward of the state of California, getting shipped around the country to different rehabs, having gone to a few different inpatient rehabs within the Bay Area, and getting kicked out of those because of my lack of participation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, just kind of grew up. And the foods that we ate, everything. So my family was a little bit different. It wasn't like, of course we had hot dog and macaroni and cheese night.
Sure.
But I came from a hunting and fishing family. So everything usually that we were eating was like striped bass, halibut, salmon, sturgeon, monkey-faced eel, venison, elk, and that was abalone. That was a very, very big dish in our house growing up, which is different than most people, most people.
That's super diverse and obviously like fresh too. Yeah. Is there a favorite that you had as
abalone,
a kid? Abalone.
All day.
Yeah.
All day. Abalone still to this day, even though the state continues to keep it shut down.
Yeah.
Abalone diving, eating abalone, quarter-inch.
And you've done the diving as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What do you like to make with it, typically?
With abalone, so our family recipe with that was just, you slice it about a quarter-inch, maybe a little bit thinner, eighth of an inch, pound it out with a mallet, and then egg it, and then bread it with crushed saltine crackers.
Oh, nice.
And then just fry it in a cast iron pan.
That's cool. I like the saltine crackers as the
bread. Oh, yeah. Have you never done that?
No.
Oh, that's you can't go wrong with that breading. It's literally the best breading that you can make.
That's
I
awesome.
Love that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And is there like I know we'll get into your family, but is there like other family dishes that were constantly on rotation with all the fresh game meat and
so
fish coming in?
Smoked salmon was always a huge thing, and my dad makes just the most insane smoked fish that anybody's ever had. Sturgeon casserole, my mom makes that, and it's just, I mean, there's no other way, in my opinion, to eat sturgeon. Excuse me. It comes out so good every time. And that's a super simple recipe. It's, you pan fry your sturgeon steaks and then lay them in the bottom of a casserole dish, mix in some white wine and cream of mushroom soup. And then in the last, you bake that at, I think, 350. I can't remember the time off the top of my head right now.
That's all good. Mm-hmm.
And then in the last 10 or 15 minutes, you get mozzarella, fresh mozzarella, and you put mozzarella over all the steaks that are cooking in the mushroom gravy. And it's just unreal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything you didn't like as a kid?
Yeah, dude, I didn't like school. I didn't like homework.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. I was a very disciplined kid as far as like outdoors and like riding my BMX bike or my mountain bike around and things like that. But when it came to like the fundamentals, not in it. Yeah. Sneaking out all the time, getting chased around town by the police.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I didn't go there, but I meant food wise.
Yeah.
Is there anything food wise you didn't like?
Oh, sorry, I'm going.
No, it's all good.
The wrong direction here.
No, we're getting to know you a little better, which is good.
But I've been sober for 17 years. Disclaimer.
Awesome.
No, food-wise, man, there wasn't really much that I wouldn't eat. Like, I'm sure there was that I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, still to this day, I don't like tomatoes.
Okay.
I love ketchup.
Okay.
I love tomato sauce.
But not just fresh tomatoes.
No, like I'll take fresh tomatoes and I'll peel them and I'll make a tomato sauce with them. But I do not like tomatoes.
Okay.
Like I won't eat a tomato.
Okay.
Or like if they put tomatoes on my hamburger, I'm like, it's the first thing that comes off my hamburger. Yeah.
What about salsa?
Love salsa.
Okay, because it's got some
100%
marinated,
tons of tomato,
lemon, and seasoning and stuff. Okay.
But salsa is just so good, especially when you like. There's a place here in town, Lola's.
Mm-hmm. Really good.
You get their salsa, you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah.
Or what's the restaurant? I can't remember the name of the restaurant.
It's all good,
but it's delicious.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing is I started this podcast a little while ago, and I started talking to people about what they ate as a kid and what changes, and we'll get into that, of course. Is you find something that you don't like, but then when it's prepared a certain way or it's just tweaked a little, they're like, oh, I love it.
It's great.
Like I never liked mushrooms.
Mushrooms are so good.
Until I started cooking, and then I cooked at a restaurant in the city, Coletto's on Powell Street, and they the sous chef, when I first started there, he's like, all right, you got to try everything we have on the menu.
You have to be able to tell the people.
Okay. And, you go to school and stuff and you learn all the ingredients, but, you don't taste everything because there would be nothing left. But he's like, hey, we have 12 to 15 kinds of mushrooms that come through here. So make sure you try them all so that you know what they're supposed to taste like and the texture and everything. And then once you get to cook them all, then I was like, I didn't even know there was 15 different kinds,
Last night, I actually went out to El Davide on A Street in San Rafael. Mm-hmm. If you ever get a chance, go there.
Okay.
And they have an appetizer dish, and it's raviolis with chanterelle mushrooms and a black truffle sauce. Ooh. Dude.
It's over.
Absolutely unreal mushrooms.
That sounds fantastic. And yeah, for folks out there that don't like mushrooms, I mean, I can't help you, but I didn't like them for years. Even just the simple white button mushrooms, wasn't a big fan. Cream of mushroom soup. Mm-hmm. My mom used to make some dish.
I can't deal with cream of mushroom soup. Same way.
I love you, Mom, but we lost my mom a couple years ago. But she used to make this quick dish, and she's like, it costs $1 to make. It's steamed rice, cream of mushroom, and a can of tuna, and it's done. Meal's done. That's it. And I was like, okay, it works.
It's
not the favorite?
Yeah.
No. Is it not teriyaki chicken or any of the curry or anything other stuff that my mom used to make or sushi? No. But, it was, we, throw some soy sauce or some furikake on there and give it a little extra. Yeah.
At least it wasn't bukkake. That would have been bad.
Oh. Yeah. Terrible.
Sorry.
For sure. No, that's awesome. It's hilarious. Definitely not.
Definitely not that.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into that stuff later, but you want to talk about so getting into things that you liked and didn't like, but what changed as you became an adult? Was there more things you started to explore? Because, I mean,
sushi.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
I didn't eat sushi until I was 21, I think.
Okay.
And so when I was in high school, I loved Chinese food, and I would go to this Chinese food restaurant in San Anselmo, which is no longer there. So I had to teach myself how to use chopsticks because there's no way that I was going to eat Chinese food without eating chopsticks. And I had to take girls there on dates, and it was important that I impress them with my chopstick skills.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like chopsticks with rice. You're a man if you can eat chopsticks and
rice. Yeah, if you can grab the single grain. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not even a pile of rice and keep it from falling apart. That's a challenge. So there was this gal I was hanging out with when I was, 20 or something like that. And she was like, oh, we're going to go for sushi. And in the back of my mind, I was like, sushi's fucking disgusting. I am not down, but I wanted to impress
her. And it just avoided you, right? You just never had it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now I'm like, I have to go and I have to pretend that I like it.
Yep.
Because I got to impress this girl.
Yeah.
And I went and I loved it. And it was absolutely amazing. I was totally blown away. So for me, a long time, my difficulty with sushi was the seaweed. The texture of seaweed is super funky to me.
Okay.
Not the case anymore. So I graduated, right? I got more of an adult palate.
Yeah.
More okay with that now. But so we went and I had sashimi for everything. Which sashimi ain't cheap, so I ate a lot of sashimi, and the bill was not fun. But at 20 years old, the bill was not fun.
Right.
And but I fell in love with it, and I eat sushi almost weekly still to this day. I love sushi. Great food.
Yeah. So you just didn't know what it was going to be like, and you just had it, and you're like, oh, it's actually
pretty good. I knew I didn't
good.
like seaweed.
Okay.
So the fact that seaweed was involved.
Yeah.
Was just no.
Yeah.
Hard no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Date went well?
Date went well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was impressed?
She was impressed.
Yeah.
I don't know. She probably wasn't impressed. She's probably just we're just eating sushi.
Yeah.
I was in my head. That's really what it came down to.
No. It does have a weird texture. I'm fortunate I grew up kind of on it. My mom's I'm half Japanese, so it's in our blood, basically.
Yeah.
But it is a weird thing. because people for a while were like, "You eat raw fish, raw?" I'm like, yeah, it's really good. Mm-hmm. It just depends, And sometimes, like, if it's just prepared wrong, or it just
if it's old fish,
It's
funky.
It's not supposed to.
You ever been to a sushi restaurant and gotten old fish?
I don't think I haven't. I think my wife got sick once, and that was not cool. And we don't, obviously you
don't go to that restaurant.
86.
Anymore. What's your favorite restaurant in the Bay Area to go to for sushi?
It's a good question you ask, and it's an easy one. There's a sushi restaurant in San Mateo. Mm-hmm. It's called Sushi Sam's or Sam's Edo Mata, and Sam just makes the freshest sushi I've ever seen. It's not crazy expensive. It's still high end, but it's not, in the, you're getting a special course. Mm-hmm. He does his omakase, and then it's kind of his choice. And then you just tell him anything you don't like, he'll nix that off, and then the rest is good. And he does everything from like fresh mackerel, Japanese mackerel, to he does like a baby lobster. So he takes like a little lagostine and then does like a almond kind of spicy, not a mild mayo on top with some almonds.
That sounds delicious.
And it's got like yamasago, the fish roe, in the mayo. Mm-hmm. So you get that bite. That's your one bite. And then, some of the others. And then since I was been going there for years, I got to talk to Sam a little bit, and I asked him, I said, how's your process go? And he's like, I'm the one going in the morning, 5 a.m. to make sure the fish is right the way I want it. So that when it comes to the restaurant,
quality control, man.
Yeah,
that's important.
Yeah,
that's at least that's what I've found.
For sure.
Selling and having sauce and all that stuff. Quality control is.
And so Sam Sushi in San Mateo, my favorite spot for sure.
Have you ever been to Blowfish?
Yes, in the city.
Yeah. Not a fan.
Not that good.
No, you.
It's good. I don't know if they're still there. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they might have flipped over. I don't remember. It was okay. The sushi's good. The sushi's good. I think the service kind of threw me off.
Oh, okay.
It was,
When I used to go there, it was they'd do like anime porn on the walls on the TVs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, at least maybe it was just the one time I was there.
I don't know what night that was.
But I went to, because there was another one in LA that we'd go to. And you get the red room, and they bring out a girl and lay her down and load her out with sushi, and then you're eating sushi off of a.
What movie was that in? That was in a movie.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, we used to do it in LA.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I've never been.
Yeah. It's wild, dude.
That is.
It's a fun time. It makes for a fun night for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. Is there, and we can get into some of your favorite spots. Do you have a favorite restaurant? And we'll get into your food in a second, but do you have a favorite restaurant? You've traveled a little bit, and do you have a spot that you like?
I got a couple different spots. I love barbecue. Mm-hmm. So there was a restaurant that was actually here in town in Petaluma I think it only lasted 3 or 4 years, but it was called Sauced. And I think there's one down somewhere in the East Bay. Yeah. And there's another one in Sacramento.
I think Livermore.
Yeah. Livermore, yeah, that sounds about right. And they have a sandwich there called the Dougie.
Okay.
And they also did these things called burnt end nachos. The burnt end nachos were to die for, and then I'd always get the Dougie after it, and that's 2 third-pound patties with like 6 ounces of brisket, pepper jack melted cheese over that, and then onion strings and applewood smoked bacon.
Jesus.
Oh my God, I'd crush that like 3 nights a week.
Wow.
It was so good. So good. But I went and met up with a buddy of mine named Duncan in Atlanta, and another friend of mine, Jason. He came out. It was his birthday. Excuse me. He came out, and it was his birthday. I wish I could remember the name of this restaurant, but they did blue cheese crusted ribeyes, and they were some of the best steaks I've ever had in my life. Like everything in that restaurant, every meal, like every part of that meal was its own elaborate maze of flavor that was delicious. Like you couldn't go wrong.
Yeah, I like when you go in a place, the service is good, and then the food is just everything you have from the bread to the sides.
Yeah.
And then the main course. I mean,
down in New Orleans too, there was a few spots. There's a place called Giacomo's. Giacomo's is amazing. Another spot down there, my friend Leanne, she owns the restaurant, and it's called Piece of Meat Butcher, and it's all like barbecue and just different amazing dishes. And I don't know what she figured out, but like she is a flavor queen. Like she has it so dialed with the food that she makes. It's just unreal.
It's all the love put in there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
What's some of the things that you liked?
Well, she does boudin egg rolls, which are out of this planet. I mean, every time you have them, they're absolutely unreal. Another favorite dish of mine that she did there was, I'm trying to think of the cut. It might have been a flank steak over grits, I think, with like shrimp and an egg.
Wow.
And it was like, dude, dynamite flavor, like every step of the way. But you could taste everything individually on your palate.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it like you're eating a bite and you've got some shrimp and you've got some steak and you've got grits, and you take a bite and you can taste every individual thing that's
every layer.
Yeah, like, oh my God, unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
That's the best when someone can do that with all at one bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She slays.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You grew up out here in Marin. Is there any local spots you want to let anyone know about?
I mean, El Davide. Yeah. 100%. That like every meal I've ever had there.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. Every step of the way, this dog won't stop barking.
That's all right.
It's all right.
We are live out here in the open field.
In the shade, thank God.
In the shade, thank God. Yeah. Nice warm day.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, we're going to get into definitely what you're all about and what you've been doing for the last few years. Why don't you give a little last
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
So why don't you, tell us the story of Flip Flop and talk about your grandfather and stuff. And
yeah, so my grandfather, like I said, he was a California fish and game warden, and he would travel from ranch to ranch in West Marin and have a great time doing it, learning and meeting the hunting community. And within that space, he had seen, I believe it was a couple of Portuguese ranchers. They were sheep herders. And he had seen them taking a sheep leg and cutting it up and feeding, And he was like, that's the wildest thing I've ever seen. He's like, I have to do that with wild game.
Yeah.
I have to do that. So him and my grandmother started doing it. And I've always said it was like the 60s, early 60s.
Yeah.
And Eastman's Hunting Journal recently published an article about it. And they had received a response from a subscriber of their magazine. And he knew my grandfather.
Yeah.
Right? So my grandfather taught his dad how to do the flip-flop back in the day in the 1950s is what he had said in the response.
Okay.
So my grandfather started doing the 1950s, and him and my grandmother championed a recipe for the marinade, which is what you had today.
Which was phenomenal.
Yeah. And they just started teaching themselves how to do it, and it kind of exploded around West Marin and West Sonoma County, and there's a lot of families that know it, and there's a lot of people that have kept the tradition alive within their own families, and all of the different families have their own versions of the recipe on how to do it and everything like that. It's pretty wild. So anyways, fast forward, my grandfather, getting older, passes it to my father. My father starts doing it. My father passes it to me, and I start doing it. And I'm a little bit more out there, around a lot of different people all the time. And I start doing it for other groups of hunters within the hunting space and the hunting industry. And Kuyu was the first company that ever was like, yeah, come on down and cook it in our parking lot for the garage sale, the Kuyu garage sale. And I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. I'm like,
yeah, it's 100%. In Dixon, right?
Yeah, in Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing it there, and I mean, I'm in a group, a swarm of world-class hunters, you know, guys that go out and kill pinnacle animals, and they are, you know, they cook, you know, they've got to have culinary ability with what they're doing and the animals they're hunting and the lives they're leading. And I blew all of them away. None of them had ever seen anything like this in their life. Now, me growing up, like, this is all I've ever known.
Yeah.
So it's completely normal to me. It's completely normal that every summer we do flip-flop barbecues. You know, it was so important that we killed animals every year.
It's a family tradition, basically.
Yeah, and if we didn't kill any animals, that meant no flip-flop parties.
Yeah.
You know, so that wasn't really an option. It was like, we got to kill animals every year.
Yep.
And then, so when I started doing it and introducing other people to it, it kind of became this like legendary, mythical thing, you know, where only a few people were getting to see it and getting to be around it. The dog is getting beat up.
It's all good. We're going to just power through.
Yeah. Anyways, so.
Yeah. So you're, you know, what kind of, what do you remember? What game did they start out with? We'll just keep going.
That's awkward.
It is. The poor dog's been barking for a while, but
yeah.
It's all good. What kind of game meat did you remember start out with, or was it always deer or
elk and deer?
Elk and deer.
Elk and deer. Yeah. So while I started to expand this and started cooking more legs for more people all over the place, one of the biggest things was if you kill one deer, you only have 2 parties you can do because you can only do it with the rear legs.
Right.
So then it was like, all right, well, now I have to learn how to fill both deer tags in California so I can have 4 parties. And then it was like, well, now I got to go to Oregon so I can have 6 parties. And I got to go to Montana so I can have 8 parties and, you know, increase the list, which also increased my drive and my want and my need to be hunting out of state and becoming a better and more successful hunter. Just so I could provide more parties throughout the year because more and more people were wanting them and more people were wanting to try it and see it or have it at their event. So it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then people were like, well, I want the sauce. Give me the recipe. I'm like, absolutely not. So I started in my garage making 5-gallon buckets of sauce and then splitting it between quart jars, mason jars. Mm-hmm. You know, quarts and pints. Yeah. And started selling, you know, quarts and pints out of my garage pretty much, you know, 5-gallon batch at a time. And then I got with a guy and started trying to develop the recipe to actually bottle it, package it, and sell it.
Nice.
And that was an entire feat in itself. You know, the recipe has to be right. I'm extremely particular. Quality control was of paramount importance in making sure that everything was right and okay for the end user, the consumer. And it ended up being that every single bottle has to be hand-filled one at a time, you know, hand-mixed. It can't be vat mixed or anything like that, just because the integrity of the product, you know.
Yeah, and that's the flip-flop sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I developed the sauce and launched the brand, and that was like right in the middle of COVID.
Wow. Okay.
And I'd been developing it and launching it, trying to launch it for 3 years, but I couldn't launch the brand without the sauce.
Yeah.
You know, and
that makes sense. I mean, I've been following, like when we first, you know, we just met a few days ago at the Yeti tour, and I told you I've been following you for a while and seeing you cook everywhere. And if you guys don't know, it's like an experience.
It's a lot more than just eating food.
Yeah, you get the full experience. And today, like, I'll just describe a little bit what we went into today. It's like, you know, Hans from West Coast Archery shot some does in Hawaii, some axis deer, and then we've got those hindquarters here, and then Andy set up the grilling them, flip flopping them, and as you go, and that's what's great about it is you're grilling for only a minute or two
aside,
and then marinade goes on, a little salt and pepper. Your flip-flop sauce goes on, salt and pepper, and then it gets grilled, and then it gets flipped back over and sliced right in front of you.
Yeah, well, a really good story to kind of like expand on what you're saying is I was cooking in a camp with Jet Tilla, who's a celebrity TV chef, Neil Fraser, he owns Redbird down in Los Angeles, and another one of Neil's chefs and a producer, a movie producer down there. And I sit them down, and they've got their hot plate of sides sitting in their lap, and I pull out a 12-pound deer leg. And these guys look at me like, this guy's crazy. Does he know who we are? Does he know who he's cooking for? How are you going to have our hot plates of food ready to go, and you're just starting to cook a 12-pound piece of meat, and they're sizing up the piece of meat, and think of how many minutes per pound, and whatever, trying to figure out like, what is this guy doing? And I sauce the leg up, salt and pepper it, throw that down on the grill, sauce the top side, salt and pepper it, flip it over, and start shaving off 1/4-inch thick steaks and feeding them straight off my knife blade.
Yep.
And they're all mind blown. Yep. They are like, what did we just witness? What just happened? Holy shit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it almost always goes, because I show up and there's this raw piece of meat with no marinade on it. Nothing's been done to it. It's not really
it's
prepped.
not slow roasting over a fire for 3 hours.
Yeah, you walk up and I'm like, cool, you're going to be eating in a minute. And most people are like, bullshit.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure, guy. Like, glad to know you're so inexperienced.
Yeah.
And then I changed their lives forever.
And you have mine today. This is the first time I've ever had axis deer. Mm-hmm. I've had elk.
Was there any game flavor in any of the pieces you ate?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I'm not bullshitting everyone that's listening, but absolutely not. And I don't want to make it sound like it's something else, but like I was telling one of the other guys, I got a like seared ahi kind of flavor, not flavor, the texture. Mm-hmm. So it's cooked super fast on the outside, nice and rare.
It's like sashimi.
Yeah. And it was so good.
It's venison sashimi.
I'm probably spoiled forever, because now that's the bar. That's the bar that I have to have.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm going to, I'll cook it myself, with your method and do it. But like, that's some of the best meat I've ever had. Yeah. Like by far.
What's wild to me is like, like you were saying at the Yeti event, and I cooked there. I've cooked with Yeti at private events they've done for the last 3 or 4 years. I've cooked for some of the gnarliest names in American culture right now.
You have. Yeah, for sure.
And every experience, I mean, even vegans, because vegans, I've broke vegans that were 20 plus year vegans just because they witnessed it and they had to try it.
Yeah.
Something unlocked in their soul, and it's like the pit of humanity. They're like, I need to try this.
Yeah.
But every single person that's ever had it has been like, hands down, that's some of the best meat I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And it's legitimate, like gnarly mule deer, gnarly blacktail, ruddy whitetail, elk, whatever axis deer, goats, sheep legs, like doesn't matter. And like sheep, I mean bighorn, desert bighorn, Rocky Mountain bighorn, like. And people are blown away because there is no of that funky flavor that you get from wild game. And I always tell people the trick with wild game is knowing how to prepare it correctly and serve it correctly, so there is no nasty flavor in it.
Yeah, and I think your execution is spot on. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, starting to talk to people about different restaurants or different dishes they've had, and it always comes down to sometimes just execution. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I had bad, a bad steak. And I'm like, why? And they're like, rubbery or whatever it was.
They overcooked it.
They overcooked it or undercooked it, under seasoned, not even salted.
Yeah.
Sometimes just a little salt and pepper.
Sometimes that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweat it out. Let it sweat out.
Let the meat give its own flavor.
Yeah. And
let you taste it. And then you can, if you want sauce later, sure. Yeah. Throw some sauce on. But just your execution, I mean, obviously you've been doing it a little while.
12 years.
12 years. So you got it down. But I mean, you guys will.
The video that Brent Burns sent me the other day. I'll see if we can listen to it really quick. I think I got it on here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just letting everyone know. I mean, you're getting it right off the grill, so it's coming.
Yeah.
Within seconds of it being cooked, so it's as fresh as you can get.
Yeah. So, and what's funny about this is like everybody looks at it and they're like, "Oh, that's easy. I could totally do that."
Yeah.
And then they try it, and then they realize there's a lot more to it than the way that it looks. So
yeah.
Here we'll play this.
Let's see. What
I'm
we
big
got.
guy. Here with the boys. We're at the ranch in Texas. Cam, Adrian. What's up? We got the old flip flop going. The green egg is just flying. Hope all's well. We're still trying to figure out how to do this the best way. You make it look easy.
There you go. Yeah. And you're the man. I mean, you got an experience that everybody wants now, and that's what's awesome. And you're traveling around the country being able to do that
and having a great time.
Yeah.
Like getting to cook for Yeti the other day at the Mountain Winery in Saratoga.
Yeah.
The experience for me on my end of getting to be there and have the opportunity to cook for these folks and show them something they've never seen before. But on the backside for them, it's the experience of getting to actually experience it. Yeah. And live it and eat it and see how it all happens and the magic behind it. And it's weird because a lot of people are like, there's a magic there. There's some sort of weird voodoo magic that happens there. And that's my grandfather, man. Like 100%. That's my grandfather.
It's Al Giddings, right?
It's Al Giddings. It's my grandfather championing that. Yeah. And passing it down third generation and, still at it, pretty much doing everything the exact same.
Yeah. And I think that's how much I like cooking is, I'm not doing any professional stuff, but I love seeing the smiles on their faces because that's the experience that's the kind of like the love and like, you're putting your heart out on your sleeve and giving it to them. And then they get to experience it and you get that joy out of that whole thing. It's like full circle.
100%. And on top of that, a really big thing for me is like I'm passing along my grandfather's tradition. I'm passing, sure, I'm the vessel, I'm the carrier of it, but this is something that my grandfather did and my grandfather perfected, and I'm very fortunate. I was born into it, and I've been able to master it and do well with it and be successful. But it's also about bringing our family's tradition out of our Marin County backyard and putting it in everybody's backyard. Yep. And giving everybody the ability to be able to replicate this and do this themselves and try it out and enjoy a wild game in the best possible, truest wild game fashion. Yeah. And it's growing.
It is growing, and it's you've got a following and people want it now. And now I have the full experience. Now I want to do it when I, get a chance to.
Well, and people can that's why I was able to get the contract with Maui Nui Venison.
I was going to ask you about, why don't you tell us about Maui Nui?
So Maui Nui Venison is a company that's obviously based out of Maui, and their biggest problems they were having out there with the axis deer population was the axis deer were eradicating the island of plant species. They were overeating. Yeah. And then with the overeating, now there's no more new plants growing up to put roots in the soil, and they're causing massive erosion and landslide problems. And all of this mud now is ending up in the bays and streams and estuaries, and their aquatic life is starting to suffer because of the massive amount of destruction this invasive species is doing to the island. So Jake, the owner of Maui Nui Venison, was able to get a USDA contract from the government where they can go out and they can eradicate the island of this species. And on top of that, they're able to sell it, which is very prosperous for the island and the community and the taxation and putting money back into their Hawaiian communities. And you can't debate that and how important that is to the island way of life and how these people have lived out there for generations and generations in their families. So he, as far as I know, he's the only USDA provider of wild game in America. Sure, you can get venison, you could get boar, you could get whatever you want, but none of it's USDA approved. It's all, if it is USDA approved, it's farm raised. It's raised in a pen, it's raised like cattle.
Yeah.
And then it's slaughtered for meat.
Yeah.
Exact same way cattle's done.
Yeah.
And that's not how it's done with Maui Nui venison. It's legitimate wild game. And I am a purist in the sense that, like, I don't want to work with a farm raised. Like, that's kind of why I stepped away from eating a lot of beef and eating a lot of meat. Like, I still eat beef and I still eat pork. Like,
yeah.
It's natural, but that was part of the reason why I stepped away, was like the whole farm raised thing.
Sure.
And being more pro eating wild game and animals that I've killed myself.
Yeah.
So Jake allowed me the opportunity to work with them and their brand, and they provide me with USDA approved legs that I can now sell on my website, which affords me the ability to be able to get the flip-flop in every backyard across America with legitimate wild game.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a hunter, and you don't have to kill it yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're anti that, you don't have to do that in order to be able to have this experience in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And that back to it is doing everything that I can in my life to possibly pass this tradition to every family in America, because I think that it's so important to humanity and people as a whole to be able to experience it, because it's the most unreal food experience that people eat meat can have, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I had it today and I'm hooked, and I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah.
Like it's easy. It's easy. And it's just seeing some of the guys and gals that are out here that never had it, and they're like, oh, I seen you. Oh, it's the flip-flop guy. So they hear of you, cause you are out with some serious hunters and showing them while it's done and giving them experience. And once you get it yourself, I just posted it for you earlier on my Instagram. I was like, this is my first taste of Axis deer right here. Here we go. And I'm sold. I mean, it's tender, not gamey. Your sauce flavor has got like because it's such a quick marinade, people think, oh, it's not going to taste very good. It's not going to no, it gets right in there.
Yeah. It's seared into it.
It's seared into it. And I think that's probably what helps it get in there on the first layer. And then, a little salt and pepper, and that's it. I mean, you can eat it with bread. Yeah.
Without bread.
Andy likes to serve it with some sourdough and some butter, and then
sourdough baguette and butter.
But it doesn't need it. If you're not doing bread, it's all good.
Yeah, well, that's why, like, usually I'll only do 3 pieces of bread, or 3 loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Because by the time the crowd gets through the last piece of bread, everybody's like, I'm over the bread.
Just give me some meat.
Just give me the meat.
Yeah.
Like, I want to keep eating this. I can't stop.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, I mean, I think, my question was, hey, what do you want everybody to try? You just answered it. It's the flip flop. I mean, you are what everyone I think should try is wild game, which if you've never had it, and this is one of the best ways I've ever seen. Yeah. There's chilies and there's other, steaks and backstraps and other ways it's smoked. We're talking about using a smoker and stuff, but it's fast. I said, I kind of was in the back of my head too when you were talking about, it only takes me a couple minutes to get it done. I'm like, you tell chefs, they're like, what? There's no prep? Not really. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's awesome, man. And floor is yours if you want to talk about anything else, anything you want to bring up. You got some projects coming up and
just a lot of cooking, man. I got a really busy year this year. I've been on the road since today's Saturday. So I've been on the road since Tuesday morning. Yeah. Did the Yeti event, doing this event. We got another cook tonight at 7:00 for 2 blacktail legs. And then I fly out Monday for South Carolina, and I cook down there at Sorinex Exercise Equipment headquarters for a huge event they do. And then I fly from there to Austin, Texas, and cook with Yeti again. And then I'll go home for 3 days. And then I'll fly out to
Going to Hawaii, right?
Waimea. Yeah, the big island.
Okay.
Not the bay, the city. 2 different places.
Yep.
People get confused about that. And I'll cook a leg out there, and then I'll jump on an island hopper, and I'll go over to Maui, and we'll do some axis deer hunting, and I'll cook a leg out there. And then I'll come home, and I'll be home for 24 hours, less than 24 hours, and turn right around and drive down to Wyoming and go cook a private event with Sig Sauer.
Ooh, nice.
Which that'll be a great time.
Yeah.
And then I'll be cooking the Western Hunting Summit for Ryan Lampers and his group for pretty much the rest of the month of June.
Okay.
And then I'll leave that, come home for a few days, and then I fly out to the East Coast, and I go cook at SIG's main headquarters, 6 Hours main headquarters.
Their academy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Their activity center. Their grand opening of their activity center is going to be like 5,000 people. Going to go cook that, and then I'll come home, and then I think I have like a little bit of a break.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's a schedule. This podcast will come out a little later, but you might be done with that, and I'm going to have to chase you down, too. I'm going to have to find you again.
Yeah, come on back.
But, yeah, find Andy out there. Why don't you tell us all your socials? What are you on Instagram and
so the
your
Instagram
website?
is super easy. It's just at the Flip Flop Guy.
Yeah.
So that's super easy. The website is theflipflopguy.co. I'm rebuilding my website. I actually acquired the .com, but I haven't launched that yet.
Okay.
So I'm still just working on that.
What can we find on your what's for sale on your website?
I have the sauce for sale. I have 7 barbecue sauces that are coming out, 8 seasonings that are coming out, a soy sauce that's coming out as well, and then salt and pepper, and then our flagship sauces, which are already out. They're available on the website. What else? And then I have, obviously, merch. I also sell heavy-duty aprons for cooking over high heat. You know, it's 1/4-inch thick leather. It's American-made. They're really great.
They're gorgeous.
Great aprons, so that's all available on the website. Our story's available on the website, as well as how to do your own flip-flop. And if you look at our Instagram, you can see all the different places we've cooked and events that we've cooked at, and, you know, people we get to interact with and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right on, man. I appreciate it. Is there any advice you want for anyone?
I mean, the biggest advice that I could give anybody is I had a job. I had a warehouse job for a decade, and it was a great job. I loved it. It was really fun. I got to work with tie-dye for 10 years. And I crushed it. I was doing great there, and I left there and started trying to figure out my own dream and my own pursuit of happiness and what really meant the world to me. And in figuring that out, I landed on building this brand, which I was blindsided by. Like, I didn't see it for what it was at the time. So I mean, the biggest thing I would say, man, is if someone has a dream and if someone is debating, you know, like, I mean, still even to this day, I had to reach out to a friend recently and be like, hey man, when you were building your company, which their company is enormous and has just gone public, I was like, when you were building your brand, like, how many times did you just want to call it quits and be done with it, you know? And their response was every week, man, every single week. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's normal. That's a normal feeling.
Yeah.
You know, just don't give up. Don't quit on yourself. You know, the miracle will happen if you have the passion and you have the drive and, you know, you're willing to sit through the highs and the lows and deal with the emotional inner turmoil that comes up with all of it, man. Like, anything is possible. You know, we are in the greatest country on the planet, and everything is possible if we put all of our willingness behind it, you know, and don't accept failure. Like, failures can happen. Failures still happen for me in my business on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You know, every day is a new failure. There's something that happens that isn't supposed to be happening the way that it's happening. And I just learn from it, walk through it, and continue to strive to be better. And that's all that we can all do. so just don't give up on yourself and don't give up on your dreams.
Hey, appreciate your time, and we'll leave it right there.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
I
Andy.
Appreciate it. You bet.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. And as a quick reminder, the restaurants and gear talked about on each episode can be found on my website, foodoriginspodcast.com. I appreciate your support, and thanks for listening.